Hello YouTube and Jammy Gamers, welcome to an ARMA video, the first of the series. Today is going to be looking around movement and staying alive. I'm going for quality over quantity and trying to no BS you with a tutorial for beginners and intermediates to ARMA Reforger. Like, comment, subscribe and all the rest of the good YouTubery stuff. Join the Discord channel as well. It's an additional one to try and gather competent players together to try and get the dubs. Now we're going to go through some basic tips and let's get started straight away with doing the tutorial. Now the tutorial is key. If you're a brand new player, get it done. Get each and every segment done. Now it's really important to get this basic understanding. Yes, you can just jump in and learn on the fly, but it's very punishing, ARMA Reforger. And the more time you spend dying, is going to be more time respawning and traveling around the map just to get to an objective, just to get to the action. So your game's going to turn into walking simulator or driving simulator unless you learn to stay alive. Now with that, we will come back to the cars and the vehicles in due course, but we're going to jump into movement on the ground. We'll cover all other elements of the tutorial in different videos, but today, again, like we say, is keeping it alive in terms of movement around the map on foot and in vehicles. Now, it's good to know that depending on your platform, you can do third person or first person. Now here we've got out the car in third person, but absolutely we can jump into first person on PlayStation by holding the options button. That should be the same for Xbox. When we're looking at movement, you can see up here in our inventory, that'll be right on the D-pad, it's gonna be weight dependent. Okay, so all of these items, even the clothing you're wearing, has a weight attributed to it, and the heavier you are in the top right, the slower you're gonna be, and the quicker your invisible stamina bar is gonna run out. And my record was 79 kilos, and I would not recommend going anywhere near that high. 30 is a good mark to sort of get to, but it's up to you, right? Let's just strip down, get our chest out, ready for this quick assault course. We'll go through the basic movements. Now really, it's like any other game, I'd say. The controls, the buttons, all that sort of stuff is really similar. Here you see we flip back into first person just to show you the detail. Barbed wire, really important note there, around the world in ARMA. Since the update 1.3, it now does huge amounts of damage to bleed, but also can break your legs, things like that, your arms, your abdomens, depending on where you run through it. Just avoid it like the plague. Barbed wire is horrendous now. So even running around that pole, vaulting the wall, using the ladder, you're far more agile when you weigh less. And yeah, it's fun to have your Call of Duty loadout and have everything you could ever dream of, but it's going to weigh you down massively, let alone the resources that it's going to drain, and that's a bugbear of the community, bugbear of mine, and it's something that we're going to have to cover in another video. So as well as reducing your weight, you want to be looking to maybe holster your weapons, which would be holding the right D-pad and X on PlayStation, A on Xbox. Now a really good consideration when we're talking about movement is don't walk anywhere if you can help it. Grab a car, share it with randoms, talk to each other and get to a destination. But also the direction that you're going in. So yes, sometimes when you're behind friendly lines, going as the crow flies in the straightest line possible, that's going to save you the most time. If we zoom into the map here, if the objectives are going to be contested, if you're nearer the front lines, do not go across that open ground. No matter what camo you're wearing, you're going to stand out like a sore thumb, you're going to get shot, you're going to die, which is going to be a massive waste of time and supplies when we could approach this differently. Now, approaching from cover or concealment, or both, is going to heighten your chances of success. Hopefully we can get the jump on the enemy, clear them out, take the objective. So choose the direction you're going in carefully. We'll cover combat maneuvers another time, but you really need to try to outflank your enemies, all the while they're trying to outflank you. So take the time to flank extra wide. You'll save time in the long run, because if you get caught out, armor is extremely punishing. And again, it's a waste of time, waste of supplies, all that sort of good stuff. Now let's flash up a couple of photos on the screen. Now on the left hand side we have cover, on the right hand side we have concealment. Subtle difference in language, but the difference can save your life. Cover is actually something that's going to block bullets. Concealment is something that's just going to conceal your whereabouts. Now concealment is all over the place in bushes, trees, grass, that sort of thing. That's going to be ideal when you combine that with the direction that you're moving in. Using bushes properly is a bit of a meta at the moment, particularly with combining it with a third person view. It's quite cheaty, but fantastic utilization of what's around you. Now yes, there are short distances that you're going to have to cover that are in the open. If you can keep your stamina, which on unmodded servers and most modded servers is not visible, keep your sprint stamina tucked away so when you do need to sprint across open ground, you've got it handy. Again, that's where the heaviness of your character is going to come into play. So the lighter you are, the faster you're going to move. Now, cover is something to learn, but things like your thin wooden fences, doors, windows, going to allow bullets to pass through. So bear in mind these are examples of concealment, not cover, but use it to your advantage as well. If you know the enemy is there, fill it with lead, it'll pass through and down the enemy. What we do have in terms of cover is harder things like your brick walls, your engine blocks, or harder vehicles like your BTRs or sandbags, boulders, that sort of thing. That's going to stop the rounds passing through and hitting you. However, RPGs and other rockets, depending on the servers again, are going to be able to release shrapnel through the walls. So just bear in mind that you're not 100% protected. You are going to have to maybe drop back a little bit further depending on who you're facing and what they're fighting you with. Now, my last point that I was a little bit torn whether to include or not on cover and concealment is that something to bear in mind, and this isn't an advertisement for it, but there may be PC players that are inclined to turn off a setting which will remove a lot of the grass, textures, bushes, shadows, that sort of thing. There's another PC cheat code. If you're on console, consideration might be to stick with console or crossplay disabled servers and stick into hopping between cover more than concealment, and a consideration for PC players that are that way inclined, maybe stop cheating and get good at the game. Let's talk a little bit more about different things that we can find along the map to use to our advantage. Now, we have things called defilades, which promote dead zones in terms of the enemy's vision. Now, these defilades, these dead zones, those are the ones you want to try to navigate in, particularly if you're further up the lines. Things like trenches, things like drainage ditches on the sides of roads. The sort of things where elevation or the terrain blocks their vision, that's going to be really good, and that's where you want to try to hide and navigate through towards the objective to stay alive for longer. The other one I want to talk about is the ridge line. Now, you don't want to be standing up on the ridge line just like these guys. Yes, you have a beautiful view across the beautiful Arma landscape. However, you stick out like a sore thumb, and that just puts a target on your back. You're nice and easy to pick off by that lucky sniper. The skyline you want to minimize as much as you can. Maybe pop your head over here and there, or otherwise you want to be behind that ridge line, maybe using third person to cheat over the top, or use the military crest. So you don't want to be on the top of that crest, you want to be on the military crest, which is a few meters below, which conceals you in terms of your skyline silhouette. If we can use trees and bushes as a perk, fantastic, but the military crest is going to keep you alive far more than running along the crest of that hill. Now, if we look at roads, like a lot of games, roads are going to be the lifeblood, getting you to and from objectives. That's going to be far better, far more efficient, far safer, 9 times out of 10, than going off-road. Not when you can flip cars and all the rest of it, you know? Not to put you off of cars, but they can be temperamental. But let's go over some of the pros and cons of roads. Now, if we start with on foot, yes, they're not going to be as exposed potentially as standing in the middle of the field. However, they are going to have an awful lot of open ground in a linear fashion, all the way up one way of the road and all the way up behind. Okay, it's going to leave you quite exposed if you're going to be walking on the tarmac. However, there is going to be cover most of the time in the form of bushes, trees, barriers, other such things that you can tuck behind either side of the road, so use that area rather than running on top. Now, roads are the lifeblood of the map, running supplies back and forth. Just bear in mind that all of these tips, like I've said before, can be used for and against you. Now, if we're still concentrating being on foot, firstly, try not to go on foot. We'll cover that, and we'll cover that with more cars in a minute. But it's a great potential ambush location, particularly near the supply depots. Now, some of the benefits or pros and cons, depending on if you're attacking or defending, would be that roads are quicker and usually safer than going off-road. So roads are good in that regard. They're far safer. They don't have boulders in the middle of them, so you're not going to hit as much. You're not going to destroy your car half as much. It's often easier to navigate on roads because you've got pylons, you've got houses, you've got other road markers, you've got road signposts, other things that make it a little bit easier to navigate, which is great. Road speeds do differ, so you've got the highways, which are the fastest, then other tarmac roads, then dirt roads, then footpaths, and then off-road. You also got the visibility as a pro, and maybe a con. Bombing it down the road, particularly in third person, you can see quite a lot, but you won't be able to see inside the bushes, so you could have people waiting to ambush you, as well as all the choke points and roadblocks, which we'll discuss later on. And actually, if you're an aggressor, running along the roads in enemy lines, you can cut them off. You can cut off reinforcements. You can cut off supply chains. And, you know, logistics wins wars. If you can cut off their supplies, your team can push, as long as they're competent enough, which is a big issue at the moment. But as we said earlier, try not to walk absolutely everywhere. Cars, vehicles, whatever are going to be key in getting you around the map a lot quicker. These maps are enormous, so they are super important. Now, We will come back to specific vehicles in a minute, but bear with. Spawning in costs supplies, particularly if you've got your COD loadout with every bloody bell and whistle. But you've also got to spawn a car. So if your loadout costs 150 supplies, and there are 150 supplies at a base, yes, you can spawn, but you're not going to be able to spend the extra 150 to get a vehicle. So do the maths. Drop further behind your lines, maybe the main operating base, maybe one of the main objectives that usually have an abundance of supplies. Grab some from there and then travel in. Your team's going to thank you rather than swallowing up all the supplies that we desperately need on the front line. And when you spawn in, try to team up. Try to grab people and team up. So instead of having 4 people with 4 different cars, jump in the same car and travel hopefully in the same place to hit with force instead of all scattering to the 4 winds and going in different places. Just actually think about your gameplay, right? What would you prefer to face as a defender? Would you prefer to face dribs and drabs of one enemy, kill him, then another one, and another one, slow dribs and drabs? Or would you prefer to go up against 4 enemies all at once? I prefer to kill them in dribs and drabs as far easier as a defender. So, as an aggressor, I want to flip that and go in with a coordinated attack, multiple people, to give me the highest chance of success. Now you don't want to be bunched up nice and close together, although it's cozy and comfy and all you feel safe and secure. Make sure you have spacing. Grenades, like real life, have that 5x5 kill range. 10 meters will get you injured, more than likely. So try to keep your 10 meter spacing. One nade could take out a whole bunch of you unless you space appropriately, let alone the lucky machine gunner waiting to ambush you all. If you're nicely bunched up, you're easy pickings. If you're spread out, using your cover, using your concealment as discussed, your chances of staying alive are far better. Really good consideration is what primary weapon you're going to have equipped. Now if you've got all of your weapons holstered, when you get back out of the car, you're not going to have any weapons in your hands. However, whatever weapon you have in your hand when you get into a car, that's what you're going to pull out when you get out of the car. Russians, you have all the RPGs in the world. However, if you get into a car holding the RPG, if you need to get out suddenly to counter an enemy car or vehicle or what have you, you're going to whip out that RPG just that little bit quicker. You're going to be able to react quicker, get that round off before they do. And with that, the passenger side is a fantastic consideration as well. Now, if you're in a regular team, you might have an action plan. So if you do find a car coming up, you can pull over to one side, make sure that you're on the left or the right hand side of the vehicle depending on your plan, debunk, fire your rounds, get back in, move on. Okay, but having that passenger side consideration as to where you're going to get out in an emergency is a good consideration to have for maybe the more advanced players once you get a handle on the basics. Really important tip, slow down. Slow down for your corners, slow down going through woodlands, slow down if there are boulders. Just slow down, alright? Like we said at the beginning, the longer you stay alive, the more time you are playing instead of dying and having to go back and start all over again. So slow down where you can. That will keep you alive longer because some of these cars are really temperamental. A lot of those cars being the open tops. Open tops are really just a nightmare. The slightest tree, slightest boulder, slightest bump, let alone if you're flipping the car, you will go flying out of that open top. You will get unconned, if not dead. So bear that in mind. There are some really bad cars out there. Ones with roofs on are going to save you a lot of pain. Usually they're more expensive. When you're driving, if you can, if server permitting, try to go third person. It does give you a more rounded view. Yes, it's not maybe as realistic as it could be, but it does help you driving. Now the different vehicles you drive will be able to destroy different things. Now the big trucks, BTRs, APCs, that sort of thing, they're going to be able to blow down a lot of trees and a lot of walls, a lot of fences, a lot of gates. So most things at most speeds are going to be absolutely fine for you, but you know, take that with a big pinch of salt because not everything is indestructible. Now flip that, the smaller the vehicle, particularly the open top ones, they're not going to be able to knock down anything. And even the doors, they don't slam shut. If you whack your door into a tree, it's going to stop you. So bear that in mind. Now the more you know, the stronger you're going to be. And anti-vehicle warfare is something that we can understand to use aggressively or to bear in mind more defensively. Now anti-vehicle weaponry, it varies between different servers, but the traditional servers, the Russians are miles ahead with very versatile RPGs. You do have mines as well for both sides, although they are very heavy and they take a while to deploy. And the Americans have the law rockets, which are use and throwaway weapon, far less versatile but still packing a great punch. Now, like we discussed with roadblocks, with mines previously, even player constructed roadblocks, they can be perfect ambush points, as well as other choke points within forests and other things. Now, roads are very, very dangerous. Use those different anti-vehicle weapons that I spoke about to your advantage, as much or as little as you like. Otherwise, just filling the cabin full of lead will usually at least uncon the driver, if not kill them. So give that a go, but be wary if it's used against you. Another great anti-vehicle consideration would be hitting it in the right place. Now, the more you learn about the vehicles, you're going to be able to tell where the fuel tank is, where the driver sits. Okay, in the BTRs and the APCs, it's not going to be as obvious as it usually would be. But if you know the best way to attack a vehicle, you should know the best way to help protect it or defend it as we navigate around the map. Which is, yeah, easier said than done, but hitting the sweet spot can really do the most damage. Learn what your vehicles look like, learn what the enemy vehicles look like, learn what the uniforms of both sides look like as well. And then through playing the game, you're going to learn the position of these vehicles, you're going to learn where's best to build in bases, the vehicle depots. You're going to learn the best way to approach different bases using your cover and concealment. You're going to learn the more you play, but definitely bear it in mind to wrap up all those tips that we've covered, to stay alive the most and move forward the most and enjoy armor the most. Now, as we're driving along, you're going to notice roadblocks. 90% of them are not going to be player made. A lot of the players still aren't using construction trucks to make effective roadblocks, but it can happen. Some of these roadblocks are going to be a little bit tricky to navigate, some of them not so much. What's really important and really a pain is going to be the AI, FIA characters there, particularly the ones with the RPGs, because you're going to have to slow down to navigate through or around these roadblocks. They'll whip out their RPGs and you will die. The AI are either incredibly lethal or incredibly stupid. Whenever you want them to be stupid, you can guarantee they're going to be lethal. Now, player roadblocks can vary. They can be unmanned, they can be manned, they can have MG nests, they can have rocket ambushes. It's just a lottery. You know, you might win the lottery and be mined, okay, if you don't see it on the road first. Just be mine full of all these hazards, and just bear in mind that everything that we've discussed again can be used against you as well as for you, but they're all fantastic tips to help you stay alive. Let's have a look at some of those vehicles as well. Now, the ambulance is actually really good. Since the 1.3 update, they are more user friendly and actually on the fly extremely useful. Heal your teammates and get healed yourself. We're going to cover that in a medical video. But definitely, if you can, jump in an ambulance. There is another passenger in the front and there's 3 spaces in the back. But give it a go. With all those medical supplies as well in there, it's a really good and valuable transport vehicle. Otherwise, you've got the big supply trucks. Now, you will be the unsung hero, really key into winning games if you're going to be the logistics supply runner. Yes, it's not as glamorous as getting 20-30 kills, but supplies are super important, particularly some modded servers that do not have a natural increase of supplies at objectives. You need to supply run. So really, that's what you enjoy doing. You are going to be the hero of that team. Keep it up. And another good shout out, though I could keep on going, would be the construction truck. Now, used with the supply trucks, with a small team, you could use the construction truck to set up fobs in different areas. But you can build up miniature bases at supply depots to help defend it, roadblocks to help block the enemy advance, all that sort of good stuff. And I'm going to cover it in more detail in the AI companion video. Even mortar nests in hidden supply areas. And like I say, it's even more powerful if you team up and you have someone with the supply truck feeding you those juicy supplies. So consider those 3. It's a very brief blitz through, but it helps you move around the map and keeps you alive for longer, keeps your team alive for longer, keeps you moving towards that big dub. So thank you very much, everybody. YouTube, jammy gamers alike. Thank you very much for your attendance here today. Drop a like, comment, subscribe, all that sort of good stuff. Join the Discord channel. We're trying to build up a community to team up with competent players for all sorts of different games. And we'll catch you on the next one. JJAM Gaming out.